Let's delve more into this with Bassima Alghussein, political analyst with the Truman National Security Project. She served as a legislative advisor in the Trump administration, also worked on gun control regulations. Majority of vote in favor of these restrictions, Julia points out. It's a gun-loving culture. Surprised? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's very impressive that the people of Switzerland recognize that national security is a greater concern than individuals' abilities to keep assault weapons. And so it's important to recognize that this vote is focused on assault weapons and not on rifles or guns used for sportsmanship.
It's interesting, this attack in 2015, horrific, calculated, more than 100 people killed, 6 different locations, more than 500 people wounded. After the carnage, the EU moved rather quickly in terms of gun control and basically putting pressure on other member states to take steps. And in this case, Switzerland, because they are part of Schengen, also being pressured. But the gun control lobby, they were quick to spend money, they were very aggressive, they were out in front early on, but not successful. And living in this country, being on the other end of this, what do you think, what do you make of that?
I think it's been very clear through statistics and now a lot of personal anecdotes that resonate with people throughout Europe and the United States and really around the world, that the more guns we have out there, the more gun violence there is. And it's very important to recognize that assault weapons are weapons that were created for war. They weren't created for hunting or any kind of benign purposes. They were meant to kill a lot of people in a very short amount of time. And so in Switzerland, they have a tradition of letting former military members keep their assault rifles. And interestingly, being part of the military in Switzerland is compulsory, which means that all people all men rather, are required to participate for some years. However, there is a correlation between guns in the home and increased rates of suicide via guns. So Switzerland is the has the second highest rate of suicide by gun death in all of Europe. And there's also a concern with domestic violence implications, how a gun in the home can increase the severity of domestic violence.
Persuasive arguments. I mentioned the Paris attack. Of course, when you look at Australia back in '96, the Port Arthur mass shooting, Australian lawmakers, they took very quick steps to address gun control measures. We see it in New Zealand earlier this year.
Yes.
We see case after case, but here in the United States, and I remember hearing a lot of people saying after the Parkland High School students really took the mantle, this was going to be different. I know you were active after Sandy Hook.
Yes.
It wasn't different. How come? I mean, what seems to be the issue here in the United States?
Well, in the United States, it's a harder challenge because the right to bear arms is in the Constitution. It's the Second Amendment. And so after Sandy Hook, it was very difficult for the Senate to pass. So the House, I believe, passed it, but the Senate was unable to pass gun control regulations, which were very simple. There was an extension of the assault weapons ban, which Senator Dianne Feinstein introduced in, I believe, 1994, and expired after 10 years. And then stricter regulations, closing gun show loopholes, which is also an issue in Switzerland. So you do have to register if you buy a gun in Switzerland. However, if you buy it through a second-party sale, i.e. rather than buying it from a gun store, I buy it from my neighbor, that transaction does not have to be registered. And so that's a really big loophole that we have both in the United States and in Switzerland that leaves a big gap.
Quickly, if you can, does this leave you encouraged or discouraged? Because you see these actions in these other countries and yet nothing happening here.
I think it's very good that we've seen this step forward in Switzerland because, as you stated, the culture in Switzerland is that the far majority of families own not only guns but assault weapons because of the issue of what we were saying with compulsory service members being able to keep their assault weapons after they leave service. And so I think that it's a good sign that the public is recognizing that there are larger security concerns beyond just being able to essentially keep a souvenir from your time serving.
Bassima, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming in. Really
Thanks
appreciate
so
it.
much for having me. And just to clarify, I worked in the Obama administration.
Right. Did I say?
You said Trump,
Ah,
so just want the audience to know.
Apologies. That's
No worries.
quite a distinction, so I apologize.
Yeah.
Thank you.